Hey, happy October once again, guys and girls. Bored now, back with Rachel McDonald, and we return to the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So we started the franchise earlier in the year with the original movie, and so now it's time for the follow-up sequel, which is A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge from 1985, so just a year later. And this is obviously a bit of a funny one because it's sandwiched between the original, which everybody loves, and Dream Warriors, the third one, which again everybody loves. And there's a few people who maybe consider that one a little bit better than even the original. But this is this funny sort of in-between sequel, which doesn't have that much like link to the original movie.
No.
The main link is the fact that the main guy, Jesse, his family moves into the house where Nancy lived in the original movie, and there's one or two like little add-ons to like the lore and various things in that. But the main setup of the movie is that he starts to experience images of Freddy in his dreams, and throughout the movie it's a little bit of a tease whether Freddy's going to come out. So it's him trying to get control of it and trying to stop him from coming out. He's experiencing life at a new high school. And of course, this is the one which now, years later, we know there's subtext when it comes to the lead actor and what he was experiencing at the time, because he was a gay actor who was having a crisis, dealing with a crisis of trying to come out at the time. And it turns out he had influence on the script. And as a result, quite a lot of what he was going through can be seen in the script. So it's like the horror metaphor is almost applying to what he was going through at the time. And it's just one of those funny things. Like if you saw this originally in the 80s, you would have no idea about this stuff. And you probably wouldn't really notice this stuff. But watching it now, like so much of it does stand up. Rachel, what do you think of this one?
I'd seen this one before, but I don't think I have, because when I was watching it with my sister, nothing looked familiar. So I don't think I've actually seen this one before. Let's just say I can see why this is often listed as one of the worst Nightmare sequels. I did not like this film at all. It was terrible. So I know that there's a lot of, like, if you take all the subtext and stuff into account,
Better
that's a
than
whole different
Scream
conversation,
3,
like
though.
you said. But no, this was
No,
awful. This was so
most things are better
bad.
than Scream 3.
No, it was so disjointed. Nothing seemed to make sense in this movie.
Sure.
I didn't like, why is Freddy now suddenly trying to possess people? That's really odd. The first kill in this movie doesn't come till like 40 minutes into the movie. Like, it's got almost no like gore or like
Okay.
fun Freddy sequences or anything like that. The tone is really odd. It goes kind of all over the place. There's a really random scene where like their pet canary decides to go like fully postal and like try to kill them, and it's like played as like this really serious scary scene, but it's literally a
Well,
bird that's this
you
big.
can't trust those canaries, Rachel. You should know that.
Bizarre. There's this Meryl Streep lookalike chick in it that
I
is
was going to say the
supposedly.
same thing.
Right. Okay, good. So it wasn't just me. The whole
In
time I was looking at
Myers.
her, I was like, is this chick related to Meryl Streep? Because she literally looks like a younger version of her.
I think she's she sort of looks a cross between her and Natasha Macaroni, however you say her name, the one out of the Truman Show, who plays the
Yes,
yeah. She
absolutely.
looks a
Yes.
bit like
She's
her
always
as
reminded
well.
me of Meryl as well. So yes,
Sure.
absolutely. And it just, this story just, to me, none of it really made sense, and I didn't get attached to any of the characters. When we got to the big climax, we're going to talk about that, because there was some stuff going on there that I was like, what is even happening here? And this whole big love story between Jesse and Meryl Streep lookalike, like, I did not feel that at all. And obviously, given the subtext of the movie, we now know that that obviously wasn't working for certain reasons. Look, Robert Englund is still fun. This one obviously has the very famous "You are all my children now" line, which, you know, is a pretty famous
That's
Freddy
a good
line.
line. Yeah.
And you know, the final scene at the pool was actually not too bad, but for the most part, this movie, no, I didn't like it at all. It didn't have that nightmare feel for me. It felt completely disjointed from the first movie. Didn't love the characters. Didn't really like many of the scenes.
Okay.
No, not for me. What about you?
Okay, so really, I'm going to be the defender of it because I think it is. I agree with you. I think it's pretty mediocre overall. I think it's probably one of the more forgettable sequels, and it probably does suffer from being in between like the original and Dream Warriors, you know, two really memorable movies. But yeah, I'm going to defend some of it because I think, first of all, some of the stuff you're talking about is down to the fact that you've got the subtext about him being gay and him trying to come out and that whole struggle. Because I think, in a way, that's what the movie is. I think it's using the metaphor of him fighting against Freddy. And I think that's why Freddy is really held off till so late in the movie. I think because of that stuff. And I'm not necessarily saying it makes it a better movie, but I guess I'm saying it's a bit more understandable. And I don't know, in some ways, I know it's a sequel, so in some ways you don't really need it anyway, but like maybe it's that old thing of like, if you wait and wait, then it sort of makes it a bit more memorable when Freddy does like come out properly. Now, the mind control stuff, I don't really get why that's a big issue because, in a way, it's not that different than him just controlling them in his dreams anyway, and in their dreams. And because it's a supernatural type premise, and that's the kind of character Freddy is, I think there's a lot you can do with that. So I don't really have a problem with that. Like, to me, that's not really a big deal. And
Fair
I
enough.
think sometimes with sequels, it's good to add other bits to like the lore and what the character can do. So
I mean, fair enough. It didn't work for me. I prefer Freddy when he's in your dreams, and that's the other thing. The dreams in this really not great. What was with that opening sequence with the school bus driving through the desert, and then all of a sudden ending up on like over like some fiery pits of hell, and like there were like these two other random girls on the bus with Jesse, and it was just so weird.
yeah, I mean, I didn't mind the scene. I think that probably the worst thing about it was the CGI because that was a bit lacking, and I think that took you out of it a little bit. But I don't know. I guess I didn't mind the scene too much. Like, but I mean, it'll be interesting as we work through this franchise because I don't know, like it might be me defending some of this stuff just because I think it's that kind of franchise. I think you can do it with this franchise because it's a supernatural franchise a bit more, and I think in some ways I want them to come up with new interesting ideas and like visual moments, and definitely some of this doesn't work, and it's definitely like when it comes to the horror stuff, you're right, it's nowhere near as good as the original. Like obviously, as you said, the pool party stuff with Freddy was probably maybe the best stuff, and like one or two other small moments, but yeah, in general, like the horror stuff doesn't work anywhere near as well, and
No.
it just doesn't have the same like direction. Or so I take it you didn't really like the characters, like the main characters, or
No. I just didn't think they had that much development. I understand that, you know, Jesse might have this whole subplot going on. Again, if we are talking more the metaphor, but him as a character, just not that great. Like I said, his girlfriend was not that great. she just seemed a bit, I don't know. I don't know why they never seemed to give me a reason for why she was so attached to Jesse, like she just wouldn't leave it alone, like the amount of times he was telling her to go away and he's not interested, and she just kept hanging around like a bad smell. And I know that eventually she ends up saving him, but like it wasn't working for me. And especially because like when you've got the first movie and you've got like a character like Nancy, who is just such a great character to hang on to and really root for. Like I didn't find
Sure,
myself
yeah.
rooting for Jesse. Like it was just more like I was just watching things happen to him, and I was just like, yeah, okay, now this is happening. Now this is happening. Whatever. I really didn't. None of the characters really gripped me in this one.
I think she's fine. Like
Mm.
the actor Kim Myers and the character, like I think she's fine in a way. I think she's likable enough, and I got the impression she cared about Jesse. And I think when the movie's amping up a little bit towards the end because of the stuff when she takes him to the factory and stuff, and that stuff I thought was pretty decent because it shows her being quite proactive, and I quite like them working together a little bit as you got towards the end of the movie. Um, I think this one is always just going to be a funny movie because when I was rewatching it the other night, so much stands out and I think it's a bit like sometimes when you have to study a movie or study a book, and some of it is like, well, how much am I just reaching and looking into this because I know some of the context and I know I have to kind of, like, we're doing a review of it now, but like just watching it now, so much was standing out, like the fact that it's almost like flipping things around a little bit because of the way, like, when they're at school quite early on, it's like her friend who's a bit like, well, talking about Jesse, and it's almost like it's him playing it more cool and not, So I think they're flipping things around. The friend, I've seen in something as well. I did look her up. I've forgotten what now, but I've seen her in something now with her
Okay.
glorious 80s hair. I've seen her in something.
Some fantastic actors hair in this.
Yeah, no, it really did. And I think there's just so much stuff when it comes to like the theme of the movie. There's stuff like with the random stuff with like the gym coach and his like, taking. Oh, it's like, where's this plot going? So Jesse randomly goes to a
Gay
SMM,
bar.
yeah, a
Yeah,
gay
to an
bar in the
SNN
middle of
gay
the night,
bar.
and
My
the
sister and I
teacher's
were like,
there, and we're
yeah, we were like, what is going on? Is he dreaming? Is this supposed to be like his repressed homosexuality? Like he's dreaming about going to gay clubs? Or is he literally? And see, that's the other thing with this movie is I don't think that it didn't flow well, this movie. Like it was very jarring. There were lots of scenes that I felt did not connect well. And that was one of them. Like it was like, what is actually happening in this scene? Like, where are we? Are we dreaming? Are we not? All of a sudden now we're in the school showers and he's killing the teacher, and it's really odd. I also feel like they didn't have as much fun with this movie. Like Freddy movies, you're supposed to have fun with them. Like when we talk about Dream Warriors, we'll talk about like the marionette scene and the Freddy worm and, all of this really fun stuff. Or in the first movie, you've got, the massive arms growing, or,
yeah.
the Glen scene. This movie didn't have that. It didn't have that. And even though Freddy is still scary at this point, he still has fun. And like, I wasn't getting that from this film. They weren't having that, and I think because they didn't do as much of the dreamscapes in this one. And I think that's my biggest issue. It's like it's a Freddy movie, and we just where are the dreams? Why aren't we having fun with the dreams? That's what I want from a Freddy movie. So yeah, it just wasn't working for me, and I just wasn't feeling that same sense of fun that you get from like the first movie and the third movie.
Okay, at least a curious film for you because of the subtext of it, and
Maybe.
doesn't that explain away some of the flaws that you're picking with it?
I
I
mean,
do,
maybe I do know a
yeah,
little bit about stuff, but then the other thing is like, look, I'm always here for a horror movie making meta commentary on like real life events. I'm always here for like
yeah,
them using it to explore social issues. I'm just not sure that likening emerging homosexuality to a literal serial killer is the best metaphor. Like, I understand what they're doing, but I'm not sure it's the best metaphor. That being said, there is a documentary that I do want to watch, called, I think it's called like Nightmare Queen or something like that. And it is actually about Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And it's about the lead actor
Okay.
and what he was going through. And I think if I watch that and then come back to the film, maybe, but I only have like the briefest knowledge of like all of the underlying stuff in the film. So I think I'd need to research it more, then go back and watch the film and then see how I feel. But like if I was just taking it just at face value as another nightmare film, it doesn't work for me. If I look into
Yeah.
that, we might be able to find more, but I still don't think it was the best made film. Like I said, it's got some really odd pacing. There was like a sequence where like we were at school, like the scene was we were at school one morning, then all of a sudden it's nighttime, then all of a sudden it's the next day. Like we literally barreled through like 3 days worth of stuff within like 5 minutes. And there were like a few sequences like that, which I just felt really, it just felt very disjointed, this movie. Like
Okay.
not a lot of things were flowing that well or anything like that. So I can always appreciate when there's some underlying things that might make a movie, you know, a little bit better, a little bit easier to understand. But if we're just taking this as just like a nightmare sequel and just like a horror movie, didn't work for me. And I don't think it's that well of a made movie either. And who directed
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, well, no, I take your point. I take your point. It still obviously has to work as a movie, and
Yeah.
some of that stuff is like background stuff. And yeah, because I don't know the full story. I don't know if it's like stuff which he like put in the script and they were unaware of it, and so they didn't really get what he was doing, or if it's something they always like he talked to them about, and he was they're kind of like, okay, we'll try and make this the theme of the movie. I'm
Yeah.
not sure
We should
which way
both check
around.
out this documentary.
Hour whatever it is documentary which looks at the whole
I've seen
nightmare.
that. I've
Oh, you've
watched that
seen
one.
it? Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm
I've seen that.
assuming
Never
it's
Sleep
covered
Again.
in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yes, it is. There's a big section covering that. But like
Okay.
Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, that's what it's called. So it's a
Okay.
retrospect look at A Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and the life of lead actor Mark Patton. And yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's supposed to be quite a good look into Nightmare 2 and what Mark himself was going through behind the scenes.
I did like the death of Grady, you know, the jock character who like
Yes, that was good. I did
was a
think that
bit
one was,
more
yeah, was
impressive.
effective. Yeah, poor Grady. He
Yeah.
was an okay friend. He didn't seem to do anything wrong.
Yeah, and in the end, he worked out being a pretty okay friend, and he was
Yeah.
obviously squeezed to death by Freddy in quite graphic fashion. So that was pretty well done. And yeah, like I said, there's one or two faces because the guy who plays the coach is a bit of a character actor. I've seen him in quite a bit. I can't think off the top of my head what, but I've definitely seen him in things. And yeah, as I said, the best friend character of Lisa I've seen in
Yeah.
at least one. Another horror movie. I did look it up. I forget which one now, but yeah, there you have it. Okay. Well, I'm a little bit more positive. Like I agree, it's a middling sequel overall, but I think I like the characters a little bit more than you, and yeah, I just think it wasn't as bad overall. Like I think maybe history has been a bit harsh on this one, and as I said, I think just because of some of the subtext of what's going on, and I at least did like the metaphor of him wrestling with Freddy, like in the same way as you wrestle with trying to come out and stuff and that kind of thing. So I mean, yeah, you're probably right. Not all of it probably works in that sense, but I think maybe that the basic metaphor probably works a little bit with that stuff. Like, there's definitely bits that are a bit over the top. You know, some of the stuff with Lisa, like screaming, is a little bit over the top, and definitely some over the top campy scenes like that. But probably, the best horror stuff is probably Grady's death. And I would say, like you, I think the stuff at the end with the beach, well, not beach
Party.
party,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
barbecue style, the
Yeah.
sort of party, and Freddy having a bit more fun in that scene. I think those are the two maybe standout horror moments. And Of course, we get a little bit of a sucker punch ending, which is like fine, but it's probably become standard now in this franchise. But yeah, it's always been a funny one because unlike 3, which does feel like more of a sequel to the first one, this one has very little attachment apart from the fact that he moves into the same house. I'm expecting a pretty low score from Rachel, but I'll ask the question, what would you rate Nightmare on Elm Street 2?
This is going to sound harsh, but I'm sorry, I can't. I didn't enjoy this. It just wasn't great. I'm going to go with a 4 out of 10.
Okay, well, I expect.
However, put a pin in that score. Give me time to go and do some research, watch this documentary, read into it. Then I'll rewatch it in a few months' time, and we'll see if it changes. But for now, going off the first watch, face value, 4 out of 10. Really did not enjoy this, and did not think it was a great sequel. And yeah, just,
okay. Yeah, see, I can see where you're coming from. Like, it's probably just then to me, it's a bit closer to be middling. Like, I think compared to some of the stuff we've reviewed on the channel, I don't think it's like as bad as some of that stuff. And I guess overall, I just don't think it's that bad, is what it comes down to. Like, I can definitely see some of the stuff you're saying, but that's kind of where again, I think you've talked me a little bit lower because I was going to go for maybe a 6 because I do sort of, but I'll go 5.5 because I think it's around about that middling territory. Like I think because I like the characters a bit more than you, like at least the main ones, that lifts it up a little bit. And believe me, when we get to later in the franchise, there are worse sequels, definitely.
Well, see, I haven't seen all the sequels, so now I'm scared because I know that there are other sequels that people say are worse than this one. So now I'm just like, oh no, how bad is it going to get?
Yeah, well, we'll see, because I would argue this is quite a consistent franchise. Like, I don't really think it's till 5 then you really get to like a really bad one.
Okay.
I think The Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, that's probably another nitpick. Then the subtitle is a bit misleading because in a way he's not really getting revenge for anything.
But who's he getting revenge on? And for what? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just because it's the second one they called it Freddy, but that's about it. So yeah, misleading subtitle.
Mm-hmm.
They're guilty of that too. Okay. Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Let us know what you think of the movie if you've seen it in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always. Share us out on social media. Support me for as little as $1 a month on patreon.com/boardnow. Some extra perks over there for the spooky season, and also hit me up with a super chat if you want to support the channel a bit more monetarily. Rachel, if you want to promote your channel.
Guys, you can follow me, Rachel McDonald, video essays on TV shows and movies. I do have some horror essays on there. I also have my Tumblr and my Instagram linked through my YouTube. So come and follow me everywhere.
Cool stuff. And I can reveal you won't have to wait too long to a review of the sequel till Dream Warriors, because we're also doing that this month. So that video is coming up. So a double dose of Freddy this spooky season. But thanks, guys. Keep watching horror movies. We'll see you soon. Bye.